So good afternoon. My name is Peter Henry. I'm Dean of the NYU Stern School of Business, and I'm delighted to welcome here in concert with our friends from NYU's Wagner's Financial Access Initiative. And we are both thrilled and honored today to welcome Professor Muhammad Yunus to NYU. Let me just say a word about our mission here at the Stern School, and my colleague Jonathan Mordick from Wagner will speak about Professor Yunus in detail. But our mission here at the Stern School, as we say, is to develop people and ideas who can transform the challenges of the 21st century into opportunities to create value for business and society. And needless to say, Professor Yunus is the living embodiment of that ideal. And at NYU, we aspire to prepare our students to really make a difference in the world. And we think this mission statement really captures what it is that you can do with a business school degree, if only you'll see the world for what it can be as opposed to as it is. So this conversation today is an important part of our overall mission. It's an important part of an educational and research mission that really is designed to make a big difference in the world. And I want to turn it over now to the architect of today's event, my colleague and friend, Professor Jonathan Mordick. Jonathan is a professor of public policy and economics at NYU Wagner and executive director of the Financial Access Initiative, a research center focused on exploring how financial services can better meet the needs and improve the lives of poor households. And there's really no one better than perhaps our guest of honor to do this than Jonathan Mordick. Jonathan's research centers on microfinance, social investment, and the economics of poverty. Currently, he's a principal investigator on one of the largest studies ever of the financial lives of low-income households in the United States. And he's written a very important book called Portfolios of the Poor, How the World's Poor Live on $2 a Day, Banking, the World, and the Economics of Microfinance. So without further ado, I turn it over to Jonathan Mordick.
Thank you, Peter. It's really a pleasure to be here today and to welcome Professor Yunus to campus. I want to start, though, by also extending a very warm welcome to another group of distinguished visitors from Bangladesh who are here with Professor Yunus. Joining us today is a group of visitors from Bangladesh who have joined Professor Yunus in building Grameen Bank and also building the Grameen group of companies, taking the ideas that are at the core of the Grameen Bank vision and extending them in new ways to create companies that focus on problems as important as renewable energy technologies, mass rural education, telecommunications, livelihood support. And so please join me in welcoming a group of visitors from Bangladesh who we're very pleased to have here today at Stern. Professor Yunus received his PhD in economics from Vanderbilt in 1969. He returned to Bangladesh in 1972 to chair the Department of Economics at Chittagong University. And in 1976, Professor Yunus started the experiments which became the foundation for Grameen Bank. In 1983, Grameen became a full-fledged bank, and today Grameen Bank serves over 8 million customers and every year disperses over $1.5 billion. It's really an incredible achievement, and we celebrate it today, and we are inspired by it. As an economist, the timing is notable. And as an economist, I think back on what was going on in the 1970s when Professor Yunus was beginning these experiments. We look back on that period as a moment of ferment in economics, and the economics of information was just beginning. So scholars like Joseph Stiglitz and George Akerlof and Michael Spence, who's now here at Stern, were creating a revolution just as Professor Yunus was creating a revolution in Bangladesh. They were creating a revolution of theory. And they were helping us understand the foundations of why markets don't work, why credit markets don't work, why capital markets don't work. And that has become the foundation of modern public finance theory, modern microeconomics, modern corporate finance theory. But looking back on that revolution, in a way, it truly was a revolution, is a revolution in how we think. But in another sense, it's quite conservative, especially when we look at what Professor Yunus was doing. The economists were very focused on description and helped us see how markets fail and how they're inefficient. But Professor Yunus wasn't happy just with description. Professor Yunus started thinking about how we can do better, how we can create a new process or a new set of mechanisms which would overcome these fundamental imperfections or failures that the economists had described. And looking back on it now, it's 30, 40 years later that the economics profession is finally catching up with Professor Yunus. And finally, we're focusing on mechanisms that can overcome market failures and new processes and contracts and design. And the field of development economics is very much enriched by that work. But in many ways, it all goes back to those experiments with Professor Yunus and the legacy and inspiration that he's created by not being happy just describing a reality that isn't working, but instead went out to local villages and experimented and tried new things to go further and to overcome some of the deep problems in the economy which were holding families back. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Professor Yunus here. He's won many awards and accolades across the world. He has inspired people in many different countries in many different ways, including many of us here in this room. The 2006 Nobel Peace Prize is, of course, just one among many ways that Professor Yunus has been recognized. And I just want to say, as we stand here at this global university, it's a pleasure to recognize Professor Yunus not only for the very practical innovations that he has brought to the world and the many people whose lives have been helped by the work that he and his colleagues have done, but also to recognize Professor Yunus in changing the way we think about problems, the way we approach fundamental problems. And that's something that those of us in universities try to take forward in our own ways. Thank you very much, and welcome to New York University.
Thank you, Jonathan, for your kind words. And I'm delighted to be back in this school. I have been talking to groups of students before now, so this is a good occasion to come back, kind of chat with you. It's not a lecture in that usually you expect in a classroom situation. This is just chatting of what I've been doing and why I did it, the way I did it, those kind of things, and what's happening now. First, let me, you mentioned, Jonathan, the delegation coming from Bangladesh who have been behind Grameen Bank. I'm very lucky this time some of them could come with me. I will invite them to stand up so that people can see who you are. Would you please stand up, all of you who have come from Bangladesh? Yes, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And some of them worked with Grameen Bank on practically from day one when I started giving these loans to the villagers. They were all students. All of them are students from the university while I was there. So they stayed with me, continued with me. And when we talk about Grameen Bank, it is them and their friends and their subordinates who have been working with them. So this is the first batch of students that stayed with me and continued with me, and they are the top brass of Grameen Bank. And when you look at them, you don't realize how time passed away because some of them had retired from Grameen. So it looks like the other day we were there in the village trying to persuade the women in the village to take a tiny little loan, and they were refusing. No, don't give it to me, kind of thing. And they were going back to see if they will take it. And some of them frustratingly saying that when we entered the village in one direction, they run to the other direction. They are coming to give you money. Run away. Because they thought it's such a scary thing. you shouldn't get in trouble by listening to these girls who are coming after us. So that's that's how it all began. I couldn't go and talk to them because I'm a man, and they're not supposed to talk to a man. So I had to get all the girls with me to go and chase them. But luckily they could persuade them. And that was the beginning. And the reason I was chasing the woman, because I made the decision early on that 50% of my borrowers would be women. That was a kind of reaction to the thing that I was accusing the banking system of, that they don't serve the poor and they don't serve women of any income level. Not even 1% of the borrowers happen to be women in the banking system of Bangladesh. At that time, I'm just criticizing the banking system of Bangladesh. But later on, I found out that it's not only there's some more delegates coming in, not only Bangladesh, it's a global phenomenon, the way it rejected a woman. And I was accusing the reason the banks cannot reach out to women because of the way their rules have been framed. And the more I tried to come up with those rules, the more I was shocked. Because the banks were always saying, no, it's not our fault. It is the women's fault. They don't come to us. So I have to answer that question. So I dug up the procedure, and I kept telling that if a bank receives a proposal from, there are some chairs here empty. Can you come in? Yeah. We don't have to stand. So if you have asked, if a woman brings a loan proposal to a manager of a bank, manager will flip through the proposal and ask the first question, have you discussed it with your husband? She says, yeah, I discussed with my husband. Is he supportive of this? He said, yeah, very much supportive of that. Then he will say, why don't you bring your husband along on Monday and we can discuss this? I said, has it ever happened in the history of banking in Bangladesh? A man brings his proposal and the manager flipping through the pages and say, have you discussed it with your wife? Does she support it? Why didn't you bring your wife along so that we can discuss? I said, that's where you go wrong. And one interesting experience that I had on this, I was telling this story years later in a conference of bankers in Geneva. So I was telling how discriminatory this was, and a lady was presiding the session. Well, the session was over. The lady comes to me and said, you are talking about Bangladesh in 1976. Here in Geneva, here in Switzerland, today I'm going to talk to my banker. She's not a banker, she's a government official. And my husband has to come with me because they refused to look at I asked for a loan, they refused to give me the loan until they get the consent from my husband. Otherwise they cannot process. So I have to physically take him to the manager. So it is Geneva of 2010. So this is the kind of things that we do and we forget about it. Another thing, again, very interesting, I should recall that. In 1986, a banking institution, a training institution, they wanted to observe the 10th anniversary of Grameen Bank because we started in 76. They thought now 86. Let's have all the banks together. We'll have a session of bankers discussing what Grameen Bank do. There were about 100 bankers in the gathering. Among many things they criticized about, they are not very happy with Grameen Bank. Many things they talk about. One thing came out repeatedly in the audience, the bankers telling that you should change the name of your bank. Instead of calling it Grameen Bank, you should call it Grameen Women's Bank, because otherwise people are confused. Because we are at that time, in 1986, we are 65% borrowers of Grameen Bank were women, 65%. Today it is 97. So now you are 65%, that's why you should change the name as Grameen Women's Bank. Several of those commentators commented on that. So when I was trying to defend myself and answering all the criticism, I come to this point, I said, I agree completely with you why we should change the name of Grameen Bank because there are so many women in the bank. But I thought it would be fair if you take the lead, because 99% of your borrowers are men. So you should call X men's bank, Y men's bank, Z men's bank, for your logic, because you have more in percentage-wise. So you should take the lead. When it's done, then we'll change ours. See, when you do something with women, it's very unacceptable, very unusual. Even today, after 37 years, journalists never forget to ask the question, why you have so many women among your borrowers? So now I have the advantage. I'm older than most of the journalists, at least. I can say, have you ever asked any other bank why so many men are in this bank? Why suddenly you think because we have more women, we have to have asked this question, why so many women? Whereas it's not asked the other way. So that's the kind of disparity in thinking, how you think your process. If you do it women, it's something not right. If you do it for men, it's for everybody. It's okay, you've taken care of everything. You can call it as if you represent everything. The other point, again, on this same direction, and Jonathan didn't introduce me using a very favorite kind of introduction for me. People will introduce me. He is the banker to the poor. When I expressed my satisfaction with that description, because at least you didn't introduce me as a banker, then people, he makes it. So at least people know this is a funny kind of banking he does it. Okay. So I said, but this gives me an occasion to raise another question. If I am banker to the poor, if there is any other banker here, if you would introduce, you will say, he's a banker. I said, that is not even, it's asymmetric. If I'm banker to the poor, he's banker to the rich. But he didn't say that. You hide that. So that's what happened in the entire banking system. I said, when we created Grameen Bank, people always recognized it, always pointed out, it is a bank for the poor. And we took pride that it is a bank for the poor. But there are many other banks in the country. Nobody says this is a banker to the rich. But that's what it is. That's why we are banker to the poor. We are bank for the poor. They are bank for the rich. Because once you create the bank for the rich, it is assumed that's the bank. It ends there. Your job is done. It's not done. You left out the whole piece, most important piece of the society. You have not created the legislation for the bank, to create bank for the poor. Because that legislation that you created is a legislation to create bank for the rich. But you don't admit it. And that's why we have all kinds of trouble all around the world. We push microfinance, you have to do this, please donate, please open up, donors. That's not the banking. Banking is you create an institution, and self-sustaining institution. And Grameen Bank is a bank, that's why it did all the thing it could do, because it could take deposits and lend money to the people. It never went to anybody to give us money. And every other microfinance program has this difficulty because it's done by NGOs. It's not a community, or it's not in the community of bankers. So I tried to address this issue to the legislators. Look, this is what you left out. As a result, you have created a distorted society. Because if you do it for men, you think it's done for everybody. If you do it for the rich, you think it's done for everybody. You're not looking from the down below. So this is the continuity of things. And one of the things we tried to do as we went along, we have now over 8 million borrowers. But initially we didn't have that many. Gradually it grew. But one thing we did right from the beginning to make sure we send the children of these families to school. Because those borrowers, the women who borrow from us, are practically illiterate. Most of them are totally illiterate. So we thought this should not be going on in the family. If you are trying to address this family to bring a change, we need a lot of other interventions. This is one intervention. You see, we didn't think microcredit is something just for financing and so on. In our mind, it is not financing. We were trying to see, can we help this family out of the trouble that she is in? So this came in handy. Historically, it clicked, and we continued with that. But we didn't forget our mission. Our mission was to see how to lift this family out. So immediately we thought maybe our responsibility would be to bring the children to school. And one good thing happened that early on we focused on women. From 50%, we opened it up. We wanted to focus on women, continued, and 90%, 97%. So mothers understood this message very clearly. And those who are taking microfinance courses or Grameen Bank courses, we have something called 16 decisions. There are 16 pledges a borrower has to make to herself. It's not something that somebody was going to beat her over the head if you don't follow it, but she has to understand and try to implement those 16 decisions. One of those decisions was, we shall send our children to school and make sure they stay in school. Because the poor children don't always go to school. That's understood, that's accepted. Again, it's for the rich. We build universities in our countries, and literally free. Education is free. Hardly you spend anything. Argument is, the children, poor children will not be able to pay. So in the name of poor children, we make it free. Who are the students who are studying in those universities? All the kids of the rich people. Poor children never get in here, even the college, even high school. But it is all justified in the name of those poor people who never go to school. And rich people, children, they don't have to pay a penny. So anyway, we tried to encourage and send them to school, and since it's free, and we want to encourage them to stay on. And we succeeded getting all the children to school. And then in order to create excitement for them, every branch has to give 5 scholarships every year to top students of under his numbers of borrowers with the children, so that they feel encouraged that yes, not only are we going to school, we are at the top of the class. That's an amazing thing. Kid whose parents or grandparents, great-grandparents never went to school, suddenly goes to school. It's most a scary experience that you can ever think goes. Not only he or she studies there, she comes out at the top of the class. This is amazing to celebrate. So we want to celebrate that, whole village to celebrate that this kid has come up out the top, or the second top, or the third top of the class. So every year we give every single branch of Grameen Bank, we have 2,600 branches, give these scholarships. And that encourages everybody else. If he can do that, you can do that. So they build confidence in them. And then we give student loans at the higher level when you go to higher education. So we have thousands and thousands of students in medical schools, engineering schools, universities. And then they wonder what happens after that. We have no job in the country. Why did we go to school? Why did we spend all this money, took all these loans, no job? So this frustration became very acute when the first batch of graduates started coming in and complaining to me that it's worthless, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't give any scholarship or education loan to anybody, you destroy their life. I feel guilty that I'm responsible for all their misery. So I came back with build another conversation with them. We gathered these students. When this point comes for discussion, I take a very strong position. I said, look, don't complain. You are very lucky, privileged young generation in this country. You shouldn't be looking for jobs. You should be thinking something else. I said, you take a pledge and repeat this pledge every morning when you wake up. The pledge is, I'm not a job seeker. I'm a job giver. Giving job is my mission. They get very frustrated. This guy says funny things. We don't have jobs. Now he says we have to create jobs. What a joke he makes with us. So I said, no, I'm very serious. I'm serious because you are such a lucky kids. Because you are sons and daughters of owners of bank. Your mother owns a whole bank. So money is not your problem. Your mother's bank has unlimited money. Why are you seeking job for tiny little works for somebody? You should build things for yourself so that you employ other people, other kids. That's your job. They said, well, we never had been taught about how to start a business. I have no experience. I don't know how to do that. Then they remind you, have you discussed this issue with your mother? When did she take the loan from Grameen Bank? 22 years back she took the loan. She took $30 loan. She was scared to death. She was shaking, holding this $20, $30 loan. She couldn't believe that anybody would trust her with this money. She was scared to death before coming to receive this money. She couldn't sleep all night, tossing. Should I take it or is still time? Better not take it because it will be a terrible thing if I cannot pay back. Finally, she dared to take this money. And she was not sure whether she should pay her first installment. She had never done that before. And she has done that one after another. And then paid back the first loan, the second loan, and the third loan. In the process, you are born, you went to school, and you went to college. You grew up together. Now she has a $5,000 loan, $7,000 loan, or whatever. If your illiterate mother can do all this, what good is your education? You can't do even what your mother did. Your education didn't do anything to you. So if you have to learn anything, you have to go back to your mother and learn from her. And you have a resident advisor, consultant right there. She knows ins and outs her business. She learned it in a hard way. And you can just go and say, I will try to make it 10 times bigger, 100 times bigger of this business. It's your mother's business. She has already built it, whatever that business is, maybe raising chicken, maybe raising cows, whatever it is. Why are you going to take a job? So now we have a new crop of young entrepreneurs coming to take loans and started businesses of they understand. And many of them very technologically oriented IT businesses and so on. Very interesting. So our idea is to build the second generation in such a way that poverty will never be able to push them back again. Because their mother has a certain capacity beyond which they cannot go. So we started doing look at other problems. and started trying to solve that. We solved the problem of toilets because this is one of the 16 decisions. So we created a business to produce toilets, sanitary toilets, so that we can give a loan, she can put up a sanitary toilet. So every house of Grameen family has a sanitary latrine. And that put pressure on the other families in the village because they are saying, oh, the beggar woman has a sanitary latrine, and now we don't have any sanitary latrine. We have to go out under the bush. It created a lot of pressure. So they had to build sanitary latrine because it's insulting that this quote-unquote beggar woman has their sanitary latrine. We don't. So every time I see a problem, my automatic reaction, my spontaneous reaction is to create a business to solve that problem. I didn't realize it. Now looking back, every one of them is like that. And in the way I created many, many businesses, probably, if you look at the Grameen history, you'll see that. One is very interesting. Every one of them is interesting. This is interesting because it created some sensational results. Bangladesh doesn't have electricity. So we created a solar energy company called Grameen Shakti or Energy. Again, a daring thing. We don't know whether people will buy, because you have to run a business, whether you buy, the villagers will like to buy a solar home system. It's very expensive. It's not cheap. But we say, we'll try. Since there is no electricity, or everybody is a kerosene lamp, we can at least replace the kerosene lamp, which is unhealthy, harmful for health, for children particularly. And also lots of fires that takes place is because of kerosene lamps. Houses catch fire and whole village get burned down. So we started that. Selling 3 or 4 solar home system a month was such a challenge, such a struggle. But we didn't give up. We said, no, we tried. Then we tried, it worked. Then we moved from 5 solar home system per month to 10 solar home system per month, 20 solar home system per month. We are happy that it is progressing. It took a lot of time to do that. Now it's 16 years of that company. 16 years later, we sell more than 1,000 solar home system per day. So you can see how it picked up. And we just crossed in November, middle of November last year, just crossed 1 million homes with solar home system. What at the beginning you thought is a crazy idea, nobody will pay any attention. Scientists were laughing at us. We said, we'll try, see if it happens, happens. If it doesn't, we accept our failure. But luckily it worked. It took us 16 years to build 1 million homes solar system. How long will it take for next million? Very simple. Less than 3 years. Because you build up the speed now. If you can sell 1,000 per day today, if you keep even 1,000, you do that in 3 years. So every 3 years, and less than 3 years, we'll be adding 1 million homes coming. And now, another interesting thing happening. Solar technology is changing, making it cheaper and cheaper every day. Oil prices going up. So kerosene price is up, solar price is down. And there's a new bulb, LED bulb, which consumes tiny fraction of what other bulbs consume. So you have many more bulbs with the same, or you need less solar capacity than you did for the same number of bulbs. So today's very simple message for everybody. Whatever your household is paying for kerosene, just give the money to us, we give you the solar. Finish. Exactly the same today. It will become more attractive tomorrow if the kerosene price goes up. And of course, solar price will continue to go down. So why did we build this company and such companies? And this is a company. Did we want to make money? No, we had no idea of making money. Then why did we do that? We wanted to solve a problem. Then I realized how faulty the whole economic structure is. When I talk about this kind of thing, people laugh, oh, no. These are temporary things, disappear. It doesn't change. I said it changes everything. Because we created the theoretical framework of economics on a wrong interpretation of human being. We make economics based on businesses which are profit-centric. We created a whole world as a profit-centric, money-centric world. In the back of our mind, the assumption was human beings love money, and that's the only thing they love. So if you put the money there, they will all rush behind it, and the economy will be functioning well. And the rest of the theory is about how it works well. I said it's misinterpretation because human beings are not one-dimensional beings, which economists thought they are. Human beings are not money-making robots. Now theory has made us into robots. We cannot think any other way except for making money. So money is the king. They have taken control of our life. I said, if you want to interpret human being in a way that really are, it has to be multidimensional. In that multidimensional, we have businesses based on our selfishness, which we call the conventional business, money-making business. And there is other side of us, the selflessness. Same person has selfishness and selflessness. We can build businesses on the basis of selflessness. Business to benefit others, not me. In one business, everything is for me, nothing for others. In other business, everything is for others, nothing for me. That's it. That business I started calling social business. And I started working and building more and more. And luckily, some multinational companies became very interested in our work. They want to have social business. So we have joint ventures with Danone, producing yogurt to solve the problem of malnutrition in Bangladesh. Danone doesn't want to make money out of it. They want to solve the problem by using their knowledge, their technology, and so on. And that's why it makes a social business. And we have joint venture with the BSF to produce mosquito net to protect people from malaria. We have joint venture with Adidas. I challenged them to produce shoes which will cost under €1. At the beginning, they were shocked even I said that. I said, as a shoe company, you have to take some responsibility. If you want to, they want to create social business, so I'm giving them advice how to create a social business. I said, you start with a simple mission statement for your company. This discussion is taking place in the headquarters of Adidas in Germany. And he said, what kind of mission statement we can make? I said, well, we can think of something like, nobody in the world should go without shoes. And as a shoemaker, it's our responsibility to produce shoes affordable even to the poorest person. He was shocked. He said, that's a big ambition. And I looked back, I said, I thought Adidas is a big company. Do you want a small ambition? I can make one for a small ambition too. But it will probably not be fitting to your bigness. They said, okay, it's all right. So they spent whole day discussing whether they can really do that with their colleagues and so on, I'm being given a guided tour of their campus and so on. And at one point they asked me at the lunchtime how cheap the shoe should be in order to be affordable to the poorest people. I said, maybe under €1. Again, he was very upset. That he said, "You are a very difficult man." I said, "No, I'm not difficult. The situation is the way it is. So if you want to reach out to the poor people, this is what you have to do." They took that challenge, worked 2 years very hard, and finally produced the shoes, selling under €1. So you give them the challenge and they come up with it. And that's what the social business is all about. All problems can be solved. That's the whole issue. And business method is a very powerful method. People have enormous creative power. At the same time, we have enormous technological power, and that power is becoming bigger and bigger because of the technological advancement in every area. All this creative power, all this technology is controlled by business. What do they do with it? What do they do with it? Make more money. I said, if they could use this technology, use this methodology and creative power, address it to could address all the problems that we have around us, these problems will disappear in no time. But they don't do it. I said, if I can start convince them that this is a good way, social business, good way, they will do that. So now, luckily, many countries are coming forward, creating those social businesses. Europe has picked up this social business, particularly Germany, France, and UK. In Japan, they have picked up in Asia, in Bangladesh and India, of course. Now we are setting up social business in Haiti, in Colombia, in Brazil, and so on, and in Tunisia, Togo, other places. Very simple idea. It's not an earth-shattering idea. In Albania, just to give one example, and I'll try to conclude that. I was recently in Albania where social businesses are going on. They are setting up a company, social business company, to sell the products produced by village women. So I said, what kind of products they are producing? So they have a table filled with samples from villagers who produce this. There's a sample of honey being produced in the villages, beautiful honey. Put in Coca-Cola bottle and cold water bottle and so on. Because villagers don't have a container. They just picked up whatever is available to put there. They have made beautiful jam, jelly, and all other products, cosmetic containers, and all this, whatever they found. So this is what they produce, and they get very little. I said, nobody will pay for anything for this. It's delicious, but nobody will touch it. Doesn't look very convincing. So they created a marketing company, a social business. They will provide them the container, they will provide them the packaging, they will provide them the brand name, and make them look absolutely super. And market it wherever they want to sell, the supermarket, export, and so on. And take the money and bring it to them, minus the cost of this marketing. That's it. Otherwise, the intermediaries go and buy up and make their money. They get very little. Is it an earth-shattering thought? No, anybody knows that. Anybody can do that. But we don't do that. We are told, oh, you have to make money. So I'm making money. How do I make money? Squeeze his money or her money out. I make money. Social business transforms that. So no, we want to create a company so that she gets the best. And exactly the same thing with the shea nut. Shea nut is produced in Ghana, mostly. And village women go to the forest, pick up this shea nut, bring to the local market, get very little money. And this nut changes hand over time and finally exported, comes to Europe, to Paris. L'Oreal buys it and makes shea butter. Very expensive item. Every woman wants it. But she doesn't get it. The woman who collected it, she didn't get anything. But the consumer is paying a lot. Somebody in between, just changing hands, made all the money. So we created a social business. Negotiated with discussed with the president of L'Oreal. I said, I'll create this. Would you buy it? He said, of course. I'm paying the same price. I'm not paying extra. I said, no, you don't have to pay extra. Just make sure that you want to buy from us. I said, as much as you bring, I'll buy. Because if my money goes straight to this woman, I'll be very happy to do that. So we started that process now. So these are the social business idea. You can look through it and have anything. So you can solve all the problems. And now, big problem in Europe, the last point, and I'll stop there. Big problem in Europe is unemployment. Every country is shaking of unemployment. Spain has now nearly half, with 48% or 46% youth unemployment. Greece, you don't even talk anymore. And I raised the question, why should anybody be unemployed? Tell me. Is there something wrong with this young boy, young girl who is unemployed? Half of them unemployed. Who punished them? Who took away the enjoyment of their life? That this is the beginning of their life and that's crushed. Everybody looked down upon them, you're unemployed. Is it her fault or his fault that he is unemployed? No. Whose fault is it? Who created it? If it is not his fault. How did he become a victim? I go back to my old idea. It's the fault of the system. System created this situation. It's not his fault. How can a system punish human being? How dare a system punish a human being? Shouldn't be the real thing that the people should be punishing the system? We did stupid things in designing the system, and I become the victim of it. Why? Why can't we be smart enough to design things that nothing called unemployment will ever exist? And I give a kind of sometimes joke about it. Said, have you ever seen an animal being unemployed? How come with all the glory of our knowledge and technology, we just quietly accept 46% youth unemployment, 5% unemployment, any percent, 1%? Why 1% should be sacrificed? Are we not good enough to find that one? So that if someday somebody says somebody is unemployed, whole group of people, everybody listening to that, what is unemployment? We never heard about it. It's so unnatural to human being. But we created that and accept that. And that acceptance is our enemy. Thank you very much.
Professor Yunus has very graciously agreed to take questions, and we will. We've asked you to write questions on a piece of paper, and if you send them to the aisles, then we'll collect them and we'll ask questions. But if I may, maybe I'll start with a question while everyone is writing theirs down. So I had a question. You were just talking about social business, and you've both been a very articulate proponent of social business and also a critic of moments in which some commercial approaches end up not protecting customers and going off the rails. And you've been particularly critical of some of the IPOs that have happened in the microfinance context. So I'm curious about whether, if a purely commercial approach is the only one that's possible, right? If a social investors like the ones that you describe, if they're not available or not interested in a particular problem, and the only solution is a purely commercial approach with the governance that entails, is a social business possible?
Of course it's possible. I mean, you are assuming that people will not be interested, or?
The question is, if you have purely commercial investors who are really
whether purely commercial investor will be interested in social business.
Well,
if that is so, let me put it
Yeah.
this way, then maybe you add one of them. I'm trying to address what exactly.
Yeah.
Companies give away money. They call it CSR. They give away money. So if somebody can give away money, they can invest money too, for the same logic. Not to take any money back. The point that I always emphasize, when you put money in CSR or a charity, money goes and does the work, whatever good work you want to do with that charity, but it doesn't come back. But if you can convert this idea into a business idea, then money goes and does the work and comes back. So it becomes more powerful money. It continues to work again and again and again and again. It recycles itself and it's sustainable. So that's more powerful. So I said, if the companies who give away money can be persuaded to use that money to be recycled, and companies will be very happy to do that. So this is one. And companies have foundations. I'm sure you see every company worth its name, they would like to have a foundation of their own. That's also give away money. To imagine that company cannot, the hard-nosed businessman cannot be involved in social business doesn't stand, because they give away money. Anybody who gives away money, social business will be a very attractive idea. And once you get involved in this social business, it is a very intoxicating thing. Once you get involved, you can't get out. That's it.
So I have a first question. This is a large question for a large day. How do you determine how much responsibility should be put on the individual for the state of their lives as opposed to the system?
Can you repeat it, Mr.?
How do you determine how much responsibility should be put on the individual for the state of their lives as opposed to the system?
I'll put 99% on the system, 1% on the person. For example, when I don't get a loan, should I blame myself that I can't do any work, or I blame the system? It's the 99, 100% is the system. It deprived me. What we did in Bangladesh, now it's working beautifully in New York City. We have 6 branches in New York City, Grameen America, with 12,000 borrowers right here in your neighborhood. You just go around, you'll find Grameen borrowers with 99.4% repayment rate. No collateral, nothing. 100% of them are women. And every day, new borrowers are lining up. So, what is thriving here in this neighborhood is the payday lenders, loan sharks, pawn shops. Interest rate, you know better than me because you live in this neighborhood. Interest rate, 500%, 1,000%, 2,000%. But should I now blame myself for this or somebody else? And then we added, like we did in Grameen Bank, we had a health insurance and health program. So now we're introducing health program with microfinance right here in New York City. People say, here, this big rich country will not work. I said, well, Grameen Bank worked. So why are you assuming the healthcare will not work? Let's see. This is just the beginning. We can provide the package of healthcare to every borrower, every non-borrower, like we do in Bangladesh. So this is how you have to change the system, the institutions, the policies. That's how we became. Conceptual framework, that's what we teach. That's what we teach, that's what we create. It's all fault of the things that we have done in the classroom, in our journals and so on. And that's where it's coming from.
I have another question about the system.
Yeah.
The man.
I hope you're not protecting the system.
The system assumes everyone is inherently entrepreneurial. What about people who are not?
My assumption is everybody is entrepreneurial. Those who are not, because system didn't allow them to find out they aren't. That's the only reason. Because if they could find out that they have like classes, we teach in the classes, work hard, get the best grade possible so that you get the best job in the best company. You kill my entrepreneurship. I was supposed to be an entrepreneur. You made me a day laborer. Go and work for somebody. So I blame the system because you didn't give me an option. You didn't tell me that you could be a job seeker or you could be a job giver. And we discussed if you want to be job seeker, how you proceed. If you're a job giver, how you proceed. We didn't give them option. That's the only thing we told. And we even told you how to write your CV, how to appear in your job interview. So much details, what kind of clothes you'll be wearing when you go there. How do you greet the person? So he didn't leave any room for me. That's what happens.
I've got a question about microfinance.
Good.
You may not like this one.
Go ahead.
Some people have criticized microfinance by saying that it doesn't lift people out of poverty, but mainly maintains their poverty. What is your response to this?
That's what I took time in the beginning to explain what microcredit does, the way we understood it. I was giving the example of the lady who took the $30 loan, how she step by step taken the $30 to $300 loan, now $3,000 loan. For me, it's a progress. For you may have to have a strong magnifying glasses to find out if she had made progress. Her progress to you is so small. For her, it's a gigantic leap. When she took that $30 loan, as I told you, she was shaking. Now she battles with the branch manager. I asked for $5,000, you gave me only $3,000. So that's the difference. And then she has a savings account. Grameen Bank, you mentioned, we lend out over $1.5 billion each year, and now every year it's becoming bigger and bigger because everyone wants bigger loan. Where does this money come from? From the deposits. Where does deposit come from? Most of it from the borrowers. Today, the combined deposit, balance of the deposit is nearly $1 billion. If these women can combinedly have $1 billion in their savings account, you tell me that nothing happened to them. How can I walk away with that? If they could send their children to school and got through it, now I meet Grameen Bank children studying in US universities for doing PhDs. I was shocked. I said, I talk about it sometimes, but I never thought I'll meet them here. Only a month back, I was in Minneapolis. A girl comes up from St. Catherine University because she was discovered by a journalist that she happens to be a Grameen Bank daughter. So the journalist came with her to introduce me. I said, how did you get in here? He said, I got a scholarship. How did you get a scholarship? I was in Asian University of Women. If you remember, there's a university in Bangladesh, an international university, which made a deal with us because I was a very strong critic of it. They will take 25 students from Grameen families, full scholarships. I said, they are not stupid people here. Simply, they cannot go to your school, that's all. You give a scholarship, give them a chance. Then I know that this was worth university. So they give this university. They have to have a separate courses for them, all these poor children that come to the university, their AUW, called Access Academy. They don't speak English. So they go through a whole year of English, whole year of computers, Facebooks, emails, get ready for the university. And now she was one of them who came from Grameen Bank into the AUW. And then they have exchange program. And she was chosen among the many, several that they had, but 5 of them. She is one of them, so she is in St. Catherine University. See how, she is from poor family. In our delegation, there's a girl with us, she's not here today. She is in our nursing college. She came from, we created a nursing college as a social business. And we take is the Grameen Bank family members to come to the children of Grameen families to be in the nursing college. And she is doing very well. And she was designated to attend the health conference here, a student. And she is offered scholarships now if you want to do nursing in this country and so on. So this is how life changes. So to say that nothing happens, this is one way of looking at it. Otherwise, it's open up opportunity for them. So one is which goes across everybody, which goes to some of them who are at the frontier, and about the students. I said this, students will be the kind of the frontier of poverty, that poverty cannot go across them anymore. That's the last limit of poverty. It will be the end of poverty at that point. So this is how I see, from what I see from there. If you say one example from here, one example from there, single example you can bring who didn't do well, who has some problems with that, but not as a class. You cannot do that.
I've got a very local question.
Go
It
ahead.
begins like this. Hi, Professor Yunus.
Hi.
Hi, Professor Yunus. I'm working for an NGO that's doing microfinance in New York City.
Okay.
But the problem is I found that in such a demographic environment, the interest rate is very high, about 15 to 25% on an annualized basis.
15%, I don't know.
So the question is this okay? Is this too high? Is this safe? How should we think about interest rates?
Oh, I'm completely with you. I'm inviting you to start another one with 10% interest. Please. That's the way to argue things, not in a classroom. To do it and say, I do better than you with the less interest. If you just say, oh, you should reduce your interest rate, that doesn't get anywhere. So you have to be prepared to do that. You just don't sit in the ring and say, you should have played this way. You play it out and show that it can be done. So that's the only way. So this is 15%. What is the cost of fund? What is the operational cost? It's not easy. You have to assemble everything. All thing you have to remember, nobody's trying to make money out of it. That's the important thing. They may be inefficient, but they have no interest in making personal money. That's where we take the final step. That here is a social business. Nobody wants to make money for themselves. So if they have to keep the interest rate at that level, 15%, it's a declining rate, and it's because they cannot cope with the cost that they have. And I'll be very lucky when they all come to the break-even point. That's what we're looking for. They come to the break-even point, every single branch. Only one branch out of 6 is about the break-even point. That's the Jackson Heights branch. Yeah. So that's my point, that the ultimate is nobody is making money out of it to put it in their pocket. It's everything for the program itself.
So I've got a question about a different approach.
Okay.
What do you think about giving direct cash transfers to the poor? Direct cash transfers to the poor rather than loans. For example, in Brazil, 10 million people have entered the middle class in 1 year thanks to the Bolsa program.
Yes, it's good, cash money. The one, again, popular subject of mine. I said the welfare system where cash transfer, you give money to people to take care of it. It's a wonderful system to help people. And it's the responsibility of the society to help people in distress, and that's what the society is doing. But there are 2 parts to that responsibility. That's the point I want to make. First, immediately as soon as you're distressed, society takes care of you. Give you shelter, give you food, give everything because you are in distress. So I have fulfilled my first part of the responsibility. Second part of the society is, as soon as possible, get him out of it. This is not fair to keep the person in that situation, at the mercy of other people. But that second part is not attractive politically. So the politically everybody is saying give more, give more, give more. But as a result, what we have done, we have created second generation unemployed people. third generation unemployed people, fourth generation unemployed people. It's very painful to see them. That for 4 generations, they have not seen employment in their family. None of them. And they have lost all their human quality of being fighter, being taking care of, able to taking care of themselves and all those. Even if you give him a job, he runs away from it. He doesn't know how to react to that. So that's why I feel this transfer is good for part 1, but you have to write underneath there's expiry date for this. Within this, it's not that I'm throwing him out of this. No, it's your responsibility, who gave them the first shelter, to find ways how to get her out. That's why I was arguing in a kind of open space that nobody should be an unemployed person. It is not his or her fault. It is the way we screwed up our system. That's why it happened. It's our turn. It's our time. It's our opportunity to redesign the system so that nobody remains unemployed. And that's the solution. Welfare is not a solution. Welfare only gives a temporary respite. But the real solution is to put her into the way he's capable of. Every person is packed with unlimited creative capacity, unlimited potential. But the system doesn't like that. System wants to lock it up. System enjoy it by locking up. You don't feel that you have any speed. You are a vegetable. So system enjoys making people vegetables, not bringing their full life into it. That's what goes wrong into it. Yeah. And Bolsa Family, when I go to Brazil, I keep saying this. I argue with them. I argue with the president. I said, it's a beautiful program. But how long would you like to keep that person on this feeding, baby feeding? Every day you come and feed him. They're not sick people. They're not patients. They're energetic human beings. You have to create an environment, create a system so that everybody says, thank you, Mr. President, Madam President, you did wonderful, but I don't need it anymore. That's what we need. And we cannot just go on saying Bolsa Familia is a wonderful thing that saved people, made it into middle class. I said, not middle class, you make the rich class. You write a check, that's what you do. I said, these countries, rich countries, have lots of poverty, but you don't let us see it. You hide it by writing a check for them. If you take the check back, they are poor people. They cannot take care of themselves. That's what the poverty is all about. They can't take care of themselves. Now you hide it because you have the money. You write checks for them and say, we have no poor people. Hiding is not a good strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there time for one more?
No, please, as many.
No problem. I'm holding a group of questions which are just fantastic and which could keep you here for hours, but I'm only going to ask you one because I know you do have some obligations.
Yeah.
The last question is about housing, which is something we think a lot about here in New York City. Your approach, this is the question asker, your approach to solving problems has inspired the development of housing microfinance in developing nations. Yet, unlike a business that produces returns with which to pay back the loan, it would be difficult to do so with housing. So, what is the future of providing housing for the poor? How do we solve that problem?
Housing doesn't generate income, but it saves costs, expenditure. Poor people's house usually is such, you keep on repairing all the time. If you add on all those repair costs, it becomes quite a saving, which you can put and have a house. If you add all those repair costs and everything, and because of your condition of your housing, your capability to work and so on, and particularly when we work with women, this becomes very obvious. When we started giving housing loan, and I have a long story to tell, sorry, I had to battle with the central bank when they were offering housing loan for all banks. So Grameen Bank was just born a few years now. I said, we should apply for this money because we don't have the money. So they are giving us a loan for housing loan. We applied. What kind of housing loan you want to give? We said, we'll give you one-room house. This, oh, the central bank said, oh, our experts in housing says that house doesn't qualify as a house because it cannot be added to the housing stock of the country. I said, I'm not trying to add housing stock to the country. I'm just giving a place where it's a decent, nice, and a solid roof. That's all. They rejected. They didn't give us the money. So I reapplied. This time I say, I'm going to give it as a factory building. They said, now what is this factory building? I said, because women work here. She needs a space where she can work. They rejected again. They didn't give the money. So I had to write a long personal letter to the governor of the central bank. I said, even as a research project, would you please give me some money? So this is how you see it, how you look at it. That's the whole question. The question is, if he can pay back, his income earning capacity increases by staying in a decent house. But if you're talking about a big house and so on, that's not it. It's just a workable house, one-room house with tin roof with a sanitary latrine. That's all we wanted. Not a fancy thing. But the person who is asking question, probably different kind of house they have in mind. We are inviting technology people. Can you reduce the cost? Can you find material for housing which will cost less so that we can afford it? So that your house doesn't eat up enough of your money and so on and so forth. And for Bangladesh, it's very important for the technology, right kind of technology, because we are disaster-prone country, particularly flood is a very common thing. We even think about designing a house like if you turn it around, it becomes a boat. It's possible. Your roof is a shape. You do that and it becomes a boat and you go wherever you want because it's such a... It's possible. It's all question of how you think about it so that it does both work for you. Otherwise, you can't go anything. Like we cannot build, which is our traditional house, is mud built. And mud built house is a dangerous house. The moment flood starts coming, one day flood is okay, it survives. If it's 2 days, 3 days, it collapses like a kind of a flimsy thing. It just collapses the whole thing. And sometimes people get trapped inside the house and get killed. So they forget about the mud. Mud doesn't work in our country because with the global warming, which is another big subject for us, with the sea level rising, is becoming more dangerous because frequency of flood is increasing, intensity of flood is increasing, intensity of cyclone is increasing. So we have to find a technology which we allow us to have a house at the same time. In emergency, we can pack it up and go. So that when it's gone, we come back and set it up again. That's the only way. But it's a very important thing. That's where the human thing starts from his own house. If you don't have the house, you're very difficult to organize yourself. And particularly for women, because she spends 24 hours of the day and night in this place. Her working hours, her taking care of children, her everything. So for her is life, part of life. For men, he disappears. But women cannot. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. On behalf of... thank you.
I hope you'll teach a course in social business. That's a good thing.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the Stern School and the Wagner School, thank you very,
Really
very
enjoyed
much.
it. Thank you for all your
Thank you.
questions. That was really good.
That was great.